Hey there, kids. How's it going? Welcome back. This is the elder of the Dadless podcast group. Today, we have a very special call-in episode. We not only have the boy calling in, but we also have our resident DC expert, Cousin Javi. He is a comic enthusiast. He is a fan of DC. He is the resident go-to guy that we reach out to when it comes to DC info and what his outlooks on DC are. And so I was really eager to have this discussion with him. The boy also wanted to jump in. And so I thought, why not just get them both on at the same time? And we can chop it up a little bit. That being said, we will get into the episode. Stay tuned. Hey, as you know, I wanted to get your opinion on some DC info.
Yeah, we want to know.
Well, first of all, because I haven't seen Black Adam yet. What was your opinion on Black Adam?
So, I'll be honest, I was stoked for it because, you know, anti-hero. But I feel like it did the same thing that all Zack Snyder's movies did. I know it's not Zack Snyder's movie, but like the universe that they set up.
Yeah.
They leaned too heavy on like slow motion effects.
Okay.
And they tried to force this like idea that Black Adam himself was a hero.
As opposed to like sticking to the source material where he is sort of like an anti-hero, I guess?
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, because I know I've read, well, you're probably more familiar than I am, but I know there was a storyline at one point where Black Adam's whole solution to getting rid of crime was just killing off criminals.
Yes.
To build up a utopia.
Yeah. And Black Adam's whole idea of like who he is that he will do anything he needs to protect Kahndaq, his home. Doesn't care if he has to kill, who he has to kill, or what shady deals he has to do.
It's more like, not selfish, but I mean, that's where his head's at, like as far as getting that done.
Yeah, he's worked with like Joker, oh my gosh, Queen Bee, these people who, you know, obviously aren't heroes.
Yeah.
And he has that whole rivalry with Shazam and Superman.
I did not spend 5,000 years traveling across the infinite void of space to be thwarted by some man-child.
Will a Superman do then? So you're what this is all about.
I'm his replacement.
Then let's replace him.
I wonder, bringing up Shazam, because I wouldn't be surprised if you're already aware that the mass like recasting that they're gonna do, like as far as withdrawing all the DC heroes now, because that was the latest news that I saw, was that now Dwayne Johnson is being recast. It's
a possibility. In his farewell tweet, he left the door open to possibly, you know, coming back. He said that I'm not scheduled to be part of the DC universe in this next era, which, you know, can be anywhere from like 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
And he said, like, I am open to coming back, which, you know, is a big deal. Which is kind of giving hope to everyone that, what's his name's not done either, Henry Cavill.
Yeah, well, did you see the that he was, or I don't know if he pulled out, but that he was pulled from the Superman role?
Yeah, no, I saw that, which made me kind of mad because he kept getting put in these supporting roles, except for Man of Steel, which, you know, has been told so many times.
Yeah.
When he first becomes a superhero. They never gave him a movie where it was about him. It pissed me off that James Gunn and them just said, we know you've done a great job, but we're going in a different direction.
I'm not surprised, being that I think I had discussed it with Hector, but I'm not surprised with the way that DC is going to use James Gunn to spearhead their movies now. Kind of the way they're utilizing Taika Waititi at this point. And then, I mean, along with like Favreau and Feige, but now that Disney kind of shot themselves in the foot and got rid of Gunn, and now, you know, DC recovered, and they're like, well, we'll make James Gunn our guy now.
I mean, it's smart by them. And
his direction, I enjoy a lot. Like for me, you know, Guardians was like, at the time, it really was a step ahead of like all the other Marvel movies. I was like, wow, like look at this guy, what he's doing. And so that was like the same reaction with Suicide Squad with James Gunn.
I was going to bring that up. Suicide Squad, that kind of saved DC at that point when he made that movie.
I think it did. I think at least it kept their head above water. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they still had to make up for everything else that they had previously released, being like Wonder Woman,
Oh, don't get me started
terrible.
on that.
The Snyder Cut, which even then, like we've talked about at length,
Yeah.
like especially going back to discussing that with Vic, it was like you had to make a 4 or 5 hour movie, however long that cut was, and that was to compete with Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah. I think the problem with that, in general, with DC, with what they did with Justice League, I'm a big proponent of Zack Snyder's vision. The problem is they decided to cut him 3/4 of the way through the movie and then brought in, I'm blanking on his name, Josh Whedon. And Josh Whedon just made it too Marvel-y, in my opinion, with the jokes.
I get that. The last time that I sat with Hector, that's what we were discussing, was the fact that with Love and Thunder, I was looking forward to it like a lot.
Yeah.
But it's crazy how much, like it's not so much that it wasn't a Marvel movie, but it was like a Taika Waititi movie. And it was like, I think the Jane Foster storyline itself is really good and would make for like a Russo brother movie, but I think Taika Waititi he made it his own movie, which isn't necessarily bad, but
for the continuity of Marvel,
I mean,
I like Thor so much.
I like
Thor's
Thor a lot
movies.
too. Yeah.
I just think that they went a little overboard with the comedy, slapstick comedy.
Exactly. I think they made it because I even went and read that whole arc, with Gore and the God Butcher. I was like, God, this is like it really should have been a dark movie, because the whole Gore like backstory is dark. It's like a serious movie, and the whole thing with Jane Foster too. Like we had talked about that for a long time, especially with again, with Vic the Nomad. We were like, dude, she's fucking dying of cancer.
Yeah, and they kind of really didn't do much with that.
No, and it was a real letdown.
Yeah.
I feel like they fumbled the bag with that one, but I mean, look at the consequences of it. They turned around and they're like, hey, for what are we going into, phase 5?
Yeah.
They're like, we got to go for quality now. Like, we're going to go back and like restructure everything because we need quality over like quantity of movies, which I don't disagree with.
I think my problem with the way they were going after Endgame for that was it was just too much content.
Yeah.
I mean, the shows were all masterfully done. I can't say all. I haven't watched She-Hulk yet.
Oh, you are way more fun than my last lawyer. I will kill for you, Megan Thee Stallion. Dial it back.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I haven't watched yet.
I know what you mean.
Like WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, even Miss Marvel. They all did really well. They all did well setting up the next phase.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, and then came, or even Moon Knight. Moon Knight was honestly, I think, my favorite of this last phase.
Did you really like it?
I liked it.
It's funny because it really was like a hit and miss, like depending on just what it did for you as a fan. Like for me, I really couldn't get into it, but I liked Miss Marvel a lot. You know?
I think I'm biased because I like Oscar Isaac as an actor.
Well, so do I. That was my thing. I was like, yo, Oscar Isaac is going to kill it. And then it's like within the first, I think I lasted 5 episodes.
Yeah.
And then it was just kind of it for me,
Yeah, so I think they did a good job of setting up the next phase, those shows. And then came Thor, Love and Thunder. It really didn't set anything up.
Yeah.
Which I know people would say, well, a movie should be able to stand by itself. The whole point of Marvel is to connect the dots to other things.
Yeah, I get that. It did. It ended like it had an ending.
Yeah. Well, I will say this though: the Gore's daughter. You know who she is, right?
Off the top of my head, no, I couldn't tell you.
Entity. So I mean, they kind of set it up. They're setting up the next group, but they didn't really like set it up because all they said was that's Gore the Butcher's, the Godslayer's daughter.
Yeah.
That's my whole thing with Marvel and how it compares to DC. DC didn't take time to set everything up. That's
something that we've talked about before, is that Marvel had the strategy of planning out their phases. I mean, and that's where I think their success has been so far, is that they've sat down and they're like, hey, okay, look, this is what we're going to do for, this phase 1. And then with this next group of movies where we move forward is phase 2 and so on. And then with the introduction of the shows, which I think was a good way for them to still capitalize on their brand, but also it did really well to like you said, to connect the dots on what was going on after, you know, aside from the cinematic universe. It's, you know, moving into like Falcon and the Winter Soldier and I don't know so much Moon Knight.
So what Moon Knight did is he opened up the floodgates for the gods of Marvel.
Yeah.
And they're like what are they called? It's like
well, more
they're human connection contracts.
Yeah, they're the avatars that they utilize.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for.
My whole thing with that is that that's one very specific pocket, like in the Marvel universe, like the whole Khonshu and all that. But for me, outside of that, it really was its own story by itself. You know, Miss Marvel. I mean, it made the connection for the Marvels for that, but it still did like a little bit of connecting, other than reaching back and being like, well, you know, I was a fan of the Avengers, and you know, this is how life is like now post snap. And I think really like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, obviously WandaVision was like the it show when it came out. She-Hulk, kind of the same thing, was like its own story. I mean, it did kind of like a really loose job of setting up Planet Hulk. I hated the way you haven't seen She-Hulk, huh?
I've seen bits and pieces.
Yeah, I honestly, you don't need to watch the whole thing in context, but it like very loosely sets up Planet Hulk.
Yeah.
Not in like the best way.
Well, I mean, I think some people are getting a little tired of Hulk in general. So, I mean, I could see where people are like, they tried setting it up, but there was no real buzz about it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I understand that outlook. Like, I'm a really big Hulk fan, and honestly, for me, it's I know the sentiment of like they fumbled like doing a good job of setting up Hulk. I think they did a good job within the Avengers films, like with Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
But it was like very vague. It's like we jumped into it and we kind of just had to know that Hulk was uncontrollable, and somehow Natasha was able to like settle him down and whatever. You know, we really didn't get like a backstory, maybe like in comics or something, but there wasn't anything solid like set up within that universe, because she was like scared shitless of him in Avengers 1. And then we kind of got like something in Thor Ragnarok, which was like, I mean, a Thor movie in itself, but again, it tied into Planet Hulk. But we didn't get like a solid. We focused on Thor. It was a Thor movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that would have been a good movie to capitalize on him and his adventures on Sakaar.
Well, Planet
Hulk. Sakaar,
wasn't? Yeah, Sakaar.
That would have been a great way to do that.
That's a good movie. That's a good like series in itself. If they really pick the right person to do it, that would be an amazing story to you know, put like pen to paper and really like get it out there. But I mean, it's kind of the same thing as like a Love and Thunder, you know?
Yeah.
Depending on who's manning that project, it could go one way or it could go the other. Like if Favreau and Feige or a more like action-based director, you know, handled it, then cool. I mean, Taika Waititi did a good job with Ragnarok, but I think maybe he just went a different direction.
Ambitious.
Yeah.
He went too ambitious.
Yeah,
on Love and Thunder.
That's a good way to put it.
I think one of the problems now that we're going to have with Marvel is that all their mainstay directors are all starting to branch off or retire from the MCU. I mean, think about it. Gunn left for DC. Favreau said he'll do a series, but he won't do a movie again. And then you're left with Waititi.
Well,
and even the brothers, the Russo brothers, are done, right?
Well, the Russo brothers said they would be interested in adapting X-Men, but they had no plans of what I know of. The last time that I read something involving the Russo brothers, they were like, there's no future plans currently for them to return. But at one point, I think during like the whole Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness thing, they were like, hey, like what do you guys think about a Marvel movie? And they were like, you know, it's not out of possibility, but if they did, they would be interested in doing X-Men.
Yeah, they're selective now, which I think they're right. They did so much for us.
Yeah, and they did a fucking killer job, dude. I think it really accelerated the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think because I mean, if you think about it, with Marvel, all the characters we focused on Phase 1 or 2, I mean, yeah, they're big, but they weren't the big hitters of the Marvel Universe. If that makes sense. You know what I mean? Everyone always liked Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four, and the Avengers, which supposedly is the greatest team in all of Marvel. I mean, I remember growing up reading those other ones. I never really read Avengers. They made us like the Avengers.
Well, you have to think of like the time and place where we grew up. We had like X-Men. We had like the Spider-Man animated series. Even for like DC, we had like Kevin Conroy as Batman, which, you know, R.I.P. Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, R.I.P. man, R.I.P.
I am the Knight. I am Batman.
Next to Michael Keaton, like probably the best fucking Batman.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But we're so used to like this certain flavor of like Marvel. Once we got, I think what people were used to, like if you followed the comics, I think a lot of us were used to like the early 2000s Avengers, where it was like Captain America, Thor, Wolverine, Spider-Man. It was like kind of that reboot after you know, comics started to pick back up again.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching like animated movies of Avengers, the ones that they, you know, like those 2000 ones.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, I think like you said, our time, and at that time it was all about the others. Because
by the time like, and I had told Jose this too at one point, I think by the time like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you know, started to come back around, I don't think people were honestly really too keen on like Marvel or the Avengers, or, you know, I think people like they kind of knew who they were, but it was like reintroducing characters to like a whole new age demographic, even just normal people. Like I think it really like sparked the, you know, Marvel again for people, where they were like, oh, well, you know, everybody knows Batman, Superman, and, you know, and the other, but they were like, well, shit, you know, here are these guys. Here's Captain America. Here's, you know, Thor. Here's Iron Man. And they reintroduced them in like...
Well, I think also the actors played a part. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. did an amazing job.
Who became Tony Stark. Who is Tony Stark.
Exactly.
Who is Tony Stark. Yeah.
I mean, they got him, and then, I mean, Hemsworth did an amazing job as Thor.
Well, even...
Whoever chose him.
I mean, even like Chris Evans did is Captain America, you know, they all solidified themselves like in the same way that in that early, I think it was the early 2000s when the original X-Men came out, and like now Hugh Jackman is only associated with Wolverine, you know?
Yeah.
Like he made that character, like he is that character now. I think it's a matter of like who they're choosing to really like spearhead these projects, because if they are going for quantity, I really hope they like really sit down and think about who they're picking for these projects moving forward. Especially like I was super let down when Blade like was pretty much like put on hold, you know?
Yeah, I mean, but then what, their third director?
I don't even know if they have a director now, because at this point, like I was even worried that like, I think I'm saying his name wrong, I'm probably mispronouncing it, but like Mahershala Ali, the actor for Blade,
yeah.
I think even he was like,
Mahershala.
there you go. Excuse me, Mr. Ali. I'm sure you'll hear this. We're popular. I think even he was like, you know what, dude, like I'm fucking out. Like that's fucking disappointing, man. Call Wesley Snipes, let him know.
Yeah.
Be like, hey Wesley, you're back, dude.
Yeah, right. I think our Ali would have been an amazing Blade. I mean, I understand him. He's been waiting for this project like what, 5 years now?
It's been a minute.
He got done, yeah.
It definitely has.
He got done with his Copperhead role on Luke Cage. I think the year after that, they said he was gonna be Blade, and we've been waiting since then.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, Marvel is it's in a transition period. After Endgame, they're transitioning to other projects, so it's gonna be rocky for a bit.
My whole thing is I hope it's not for too long. You know,
yeah.
I hope like this. Like what's going on currently with them didn't like set them too far off of their like trajectory to where they're like, hey dude, it's going to take us like maybe a good 5 years to even come back. Cause they were doing good for the time that like they were putting movies out. They were like, hey, like it's every, I don't know, like 3 to 6 months or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
I hope it didn't like take them too far off course. But that's just me as as a Marvel fan, you know?
Yeah. I think one of the big setbacks for them, I mean, it's no fault of their own, was that they were really banking on Chadwick Boseman to be one of the main heads to the next phase.
I definitely don't disagree with that.
And when he went down, they're like, crap, Black Panther was supposed to be like our next Iron Man trilogy.
Yeah, he was our
with
guy.
him. And then they're like, okay, well, guess we can't do that. Because, I mean, I think one of the things that they were going to do, in my opinion, what they should have done, is that if Boseman was still alive, they could adapt the storyline and introduce the X-Men with Storm. Because Storm and him have a history in the past.
Yeah, well, especially adapting something like Illuminati. I mean, I think they kind of like, they recovered well with the whole like utilizing the multiverse and being like, well, hey, this is, the Illuminati, and where, like where all the figureheads of, our kind of little pocket universe, and even introducing Professor X, in that way. Even like that being said, I wouldn't mind if moving forward with whatever their plan is for the X-Men, they've talked about like Giancarlo Esposito from like Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
They've talked about using him as Professor X. They've even talked about him.
I heard that he was going to be Magneto.
So that was two castings. At the time when I had read about it, it was theory. But he was like, whatever role, like I would play it with eloquence and, whatever else. And I was like, I think he'd be a sick Professor X, but I think he would be a sick Magneto. But with a choice like that, like this goes back to a real old discussion that me and Vic had. And it was like, and it kind of plays a part now with the way Disney cast Haley Bailey for the Little Mermaid. And I mean, Vic kind of set me right, but like, is race important to the character? Because you have to think that if Giancarlo Esposito was Magneto is a survivor of the fucking Holocaust, and that's kind of that's what sparked his mutation to blossom and for him to become Magneto. But like, how would you rewrite that?
Yeah, well, I've actually had a couple conversations with people about that. If you're gonna go that route, then if you're gonna make Professor X African American, then you have to also make, in my opinion, you have to also make Magneto African American. And you put them on different sides of the civil rights movement.
Yo, that's fucking crazy.
Magneto follows along the lines of Malcolm X. Xavier follows along the lines of MLK.
Hey, I'm not even gonna lie to you, dude. That's fucking crazy. I never would have even thought of that.
Yeah. One of my friends took a social psychology class and was talking to me about that. So, social justice class.
That would be sick. Oh my god, that makes so much sense.
That would. And
Holy
to
shit.
me, that would be the only way to do that.
Yeah.
So.
That makes crazy amounts of sense.
Because also, I was also thinking too, like, how are we going to conceivably make it, that Magneto is from the Holocaust era still? That dude would be like 110 years old.
That's kind of more like within the comic realm, because even like in Days of Future Past, I mean, although I'm sure it tells you like what time they're living in, but Magneto ultimately like suppresses his power enough to where he's like really like in an elevated form, I guess, like in Days of Future Past. But I get like that the mutation itself, I'm sure, would like slow the aging of like a normal person. But true, that is like a really good point, like how you would make that work. Which, I mean, either way, like if you just did like a normal like Fassbender Magneto, I feel like at this point in time where we are like culturally and stuff, I think they would do something to fit the time frame. So like, I honestly, the idea of them setting it within like the civil rights movement, I think fits fucking like amazingly,
Yeah, I mean, I think that would really work really well.
Hey, we got to tweet this out.
Yeah.
Get this to Marvel. Be like, hey, you know what, dude? There's this guy. His name's Javi, but I'll give them my last name, so I'll take the credit. No, I think that's crazy. That really is like, you could sell that and be like, hey, dude, like, just make me a character, make me Wolverine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll be a little bit bigger than Wolverine is in the stomach area, but like, we'll make it work.
Hey, man, you just go crazy.
Exactly. So like, that's me. I think that would be a good idea for X-Men.
I think that's great. That's crazy in like the best way possible. That's like mind blowing. But then again, like I'm simple. What do you think, like as far as DC, like to shift over, how long do you think they go as far as like using this time to recover? Because I think the only person that's left for DC currently is Zach Levy.
Yeah. I mean, technically Jason Momoa. I mean,
oh, that's right.
They haven't resigned him.
That's right. He was Aquaman. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the path they're gonna take, and I think when they made Black Adam, they kind of like they thought about it already. everyone that's older already is going to be out the door soon. So they kept Zach Levy away from all that so that they could say he's from a different universe.
Okay.
Because from what I've heard, they want to go younger at all their roles.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
They want to make it like honestly, like with the like with what Marvel's doing with the shows. They're saying their next group up. So I think they're gonna do like a 20-some-year-old Superman, like in a 25-ish, you know. And Levy works with that because technically he's a kid.
True. Yeah.
And he can just transform. And I forget the kid actor's name, but they could just do that.
It's a good loophole just to be like, well, I'm his kid, but Shazam, and then every you see Zach Levy.
Yeah, and if they wanted, they could set it all in the Batman's universe. I think one of the things people have to remember with the Batman, the new one that just came out with Pattinson, is that he's supposed to be like a very raw Batman.
Well, it's like year one, right?
Yeah, year two, I think.
Okay.
Something like that. Year one, year two.
Well, true, because
very raw.
They know of him at this point, so it's like,
yeah.
I mean, they set him up as like, oh, he's a detective currently.
Yeah, which follows the actual storyline of what the Batman actually was at the beginning. Again, I'm a DC guy, so I like the violence that Batman inflicted on people, the way he did it.
Yeah.
It was very gritty. It was like he was a caged animal let out.
The hell are you supposed to be?
I'm vengeance.
Hey, what's up?
All right.
We were talking about the setting of the Robert Pattinson Batman.
Oh, okay.
Like the grittiness of it. Like I like how they made Batman very raw. He wasn't he's like a caged animal let out.
Yeah, I can see that.
It was good for me, like in those action sequences, because it was probably the closest that we had to like the Christopher Nolan Batman.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like that's the Batman that like me as a guy who really like that's the extent of DC that I follow really is Batman because of how dark it is, That's a Batman that I would like to see, as opposed to like the way they say it, the way like it's to marvelize like Batman, to make him more kid friendly. Like I want to see Batman fucking like break people's arms and shit,
I want to see him get to the point where he says, "Enough is enough. If I go too much farther, then I'm going to become a villain myself."
He gets there in the comics, right? Like that's more.
There's a version of that
without getting to like Azrael, right? Like the Batman that kills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see that come to the big screen though. Like I want to see that play out in the movie where like the other superheroes kind of like get wind of it and they're like, "Hey, this guy's he's killing everybody."
Honestly, if that was the angle, like I want to see fucking Red Hood and I want to see Damon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big storyline for him. That when he learns to stop killing, he gets these wayward children who all want to kill. And he's trying to suppress that from them.
Yeah.
With Damien, it was even more heartbreaking for him because, well, his actual child.
Yeah. Well, but that too, and that he has that influence of Ra's al Ghul,
Yeah. Talk about crazy if they ever developed that. You know how he was conceived, right? Talia al Ghul drugged Batman and raped him.
Jesus Christ.
That's like a whole scene. She's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you have a son." He's like, "I do? I didn't think we had slept together." She's like, "Yeah, I kind of drugged you one night."
I think Batman would be like, well, I mean, without having to like take spotlight off of any of the other DC characters, but I think Batman would be like the easiest way to get more momentum for DC.
Yeah.
At this point.
Every Batman movie they've put out since the Christopher Nolan series has been trying to do that, but they just haven't found the right footing to launch. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I get that. I think honestly, for me, I wasn't counting on fucking Ben Affleck. Like by no means.
No, in no ways was he going to be the savior of DC. I honestly don't understand the reasoning behind even casting him, but I mean, to each their own, you know what I mean? Some people I've talked to have said that Ben Affleck as Batman was actually better than Robert Pattinson.
He's more comic book accurate for that, like for that time. Supposed to be like after Jason dies. It's that time. Very vengeful.
The modern day comic book Batman wearing the suit.
Yeah.
Actual armor suit. But Robert Pattinson was more of like the older age comic Batman, where the suit wasn't really what kept him safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it was his know-how. It was Detective Batman.
Yeah.
Even like, so much in the fighting style. I thought that Batflick, as they call him, he had no, like, it didn't look like he had actual martial arts training. It was all gadgets and weapons.
Yeah, it was like kind of like old-timey, like Batman. Like,
yeah,
he was like, oh, Batarang, pow, gotcha.
I honestly think if they did a sequel, Batman with Robert Pattinson, I would much rather go watch that one than Ben Affleck in his own Batman movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Flashpoint Paradox.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan? Come on.
I'm okay with that.
If he's just Negan Batman, get out of here, dude.
I saw that they might cast him actually as Lobo.
I saw that as well.
They're thinking of casting him as Lobo, which honestly I can get behind because that guy's a fucking asshole, and so is Lobo. You know what I mean?
I think Momoa would have been a good Lobo, honestly.
Yeah, he was on the list too, but I mean, I don't think they would cast him just because he's already Aquaman.
Yeah,
why not? We were talking about that. He might be done
as Aquaman.
Yeah, the whole Zack Snyder Justice League is gone after Flashpoint, probably.
Yeah, everything's been like, as far as we know, everything's been recast other than Zach Levy.
We're getting Aquaman 2, but that just might be a one-off.
Doesn't Shazam play a big role in the Flashpoint because he doesn't lose memory as a kid?
No, so he does play a role, but we were talking about that too, that they kind of didn't have him interact with any ever actual actors from DC, so that he could possibly be saved for the reboot.
So
this could be what you think.
Oh, okay. Because, I mean, I think, what's his name? Zachary Levi?
Yeah.
I think he's the best actor for that role right now.
Hell yeah, he is.
I mean, he's a kid in an adult body.
Yeah, basically. And they already are swift shifting to younger people. They're doing Blue Beetle.
Yeah.
That one I'm excited for.
Hey, George Lopez is in that movie.
Yeah.
Hey, sick.
Hey, we're finally getting ourselves a Mexican superhero, guys. Finally.
Bro, we've been having superheroes. Elote mans across the world are crying. They're a superhero in the neighborhood.
I took that back. What I mean is finally DC's finally giving us our Mexican superhero.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm curious to see how that turns out. That was one superhero that I always thought was pretty cool.
Very underrated.
That brings up characters from the Justice League animated and from like Batman Brave and the Bold.
Well, he might be the entrance to Teen Titans.
Okay, so that was something that I had read.
Young Justice?
Yeah, Young Justice. I think Blue Beetle's a sick character. Honestly, I think I'm not super like in the know for Titans, but from what I do know, like Titans, the Doom Patrol, like those are like really well off series for DC, you know? And I think utilizing characters like that, like honestly could do them some good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just with the actors that they've chosen to play those characters, I think they hit the nail on the head with almost every single one.
I think they could actually translate them to movie.
So
especially, I mean, I feel like you can't really think of any actor that can really fill that role, and they got somebody that, I mean, isn't on the scene. I don't think the Hollywood scene.
Yeah.
So to tack on to that, that's what I wanted to ask, was one of the questions I wanted to ask. I'm assuming both of you guys have watched Black Adam.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the thing that caught my eye with Black Adam, was introducing the JSA. What did you think of the casting for like introducing those characters? Because the big one for me was Dr. Fate.
Yeah.
That was the one that I was like, holy shit, dude, like that's a crazy character to fucking introduce. And I think Pierce Brosnan was like a really good choice to do that.
So I agree with Pierce Brosnan being the actor, with bringing him into the movie. I don't agree with how they did it. I think it was just too like, okay, here's the JSA, you know, here's part of the crew. You see four members of it, but so wait, in the comics and in other animated series, he's almost an asshole just to get justice across. And I didn't feel like that's how he was in this movie. Like he was giving his life up. In other comics, he would be be willing to sacrifice other heroes just for the sake of him moving on and securing justice.
Well, I think he's more of like, to add to that, to describe him, he's more of like a blunt Doctor Strange. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas Doctor Strange is like, well, we can maybe change this. And Dr. Fate's like, nah, we got to do it one way.
Yeah, and I didn't feel like we got that from him. I feel like we got like a Doctor Strange knockoff where it was like, there's only one way to do it, but I can save everybody except for myself.
From what I know of the role in the movie, I think he was more like Gandalf, the wise man there in the group.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny because Hawkman is supposed like hundreds of years old.
He's the oldest one there. He's an Egyptian.
Legit?
Yeah.
Is that how that is?
It depending on which version of Hawkman you get. Some Hawkmen are reincarnations of himself over and over. He dies and resurrects over and over, basically. Or he could be an alien from Thangarian.
Huh? I had no idea.
So, yeah.
And then what was the additional character? Is it the Atom or is it Atom Smasher?
Atom Smasher, yeah.
So he was another character for me that I had the same reaction to when they introduced Ant-Man. I was like, yo, that's a fucking like real crazy like character to introduce. You know what I mean? I think the only other character that I really had that strong of a reaction to, which I don't know if you can consider it now because of the way that the movie universe for DC is working out. When Vic and I saw the Snyder Cut when it came out, was when that fucking little bit that they introduced Martian Manhunter, because he's my fucking if DC has like the slim roster of DC characters that I like follow, Martian Manhunter fucking like my reaction to Martian Manhunter was I was like, yo, like what is DC doing right now?
Yeah, I think DC has a lot of characters that have such good backstories, but their problem, the wall they keep running into, is they don't know how to introduce them and how to get it started. Because if you're really going to start the Justice League, in my opinion, you started off with the Martian Manhunter. You do his movie first, introduce him, because everybody knows Batman, everybody knows Superman, they know their stories and everything like that. But you introduce the Martian Manhunter, and then you have Batman versus Superman introducing the other Justice League members, and then the third movie you have where they join up and he becomes part of the Justice League.
I think even characters pulling like I really like the Spectre.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if you guys are familiar with the Spectre, I think if DC went the route of Disney in like creating series, because people really love the like Green Arrow and like Flash and stuff, but if they kind of changed up for HBO Max and they made their own like DC exclusive series and they did like
they are going to do that with Green Lantern.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was going to say if they did like a Booster Gold, if they did the Spectre, even if they're one-offs and they don't utilize them, you know? I think Booster Gold is I think that's a hitter fucking choice to do something with.
Yeah.
There's so many like just little series that they can hone in on and just make the universe come alive.
I think so. I think that could really help them in setting up like their cinematic universe moving forward, you know?
Yeah, that too. I mean, you have a storyline to move from, and you have actors to pull from.
I think it's just, it's like I was telling Javi, I think it's just the matter, it's kind of like with Marvel, I think it's a matter of who they're using to spearhead these projects, and like, they really need to get like a solid like bearing behind them to be like, hey, like we can trust you to do this, and we need to make sure that this goes off so that we can then start like the trickle down of moving into that cinematic universe and kind of reshaping it.
Yeah, I see that.
I mean, even though it's however many years down the road for DC.
There needs to be an actual plan.
Because Marvel at this point, I mean, they took the ball. Like I was telling Javi, again, it's the thing that may have derailed them is the way that Phase 4 has kind of turned out. Because Phase 4 has been, it's shaky to say the least.
Yeah, that's what I was talking to one of my coworkers about, is that the direction that Marvel's going in, it kind of seems like they know where they want to go, but they don't know how to get there, because there's a lot of characters that are being introduced or that need to be introduced that haven't even had like the groundwork laid down yet. And just for like one example, Squirrel Girl, man, like she's supposed to be a big part of the next Avengers coming up. And I mean, it's radio silence over there.
Squirrel Girl's been like a fan favorite for a minute to cast her.
Yeah, but they've also got everyone else for the Young Avengers besides her.
Well,
except everyone else.
Remember when Anna Kendrick was pushing for fucking Squirrel Girl?
That would be perfect.
Hate to see that, dude.
I honestly think what I'm looking forward to, which I think is like, it's kind of like wishful thinking, but like for the upcoming Captain America with Sam taking like the role of Captain America, because Isaiah Bradley's going to be back in it. And who's to say that his grandson won't show up and, well, I think he's like Patriot. Like what, who's to say that he doesn't show up and we don't see like just, like Sam, Isaiah Bradley, the grandson. But that's kind of like fan casting, I guess, to want like this kid show up and like beat the fuck out of people.
I like that idea. I just think Marvel sometimes gets in its own way by trying to make the movie too, I think what's the word I'm looking for? Well, at least in phase 4, they're trying to make it, first of all, too funny and a little problematic, a little too woke sometimes.
Hey, watch your mouth, dude.
I said problematic.
No,
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing that they're being progressive.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I think they're having a hard time with like the morality of it. They're like, hey, like, can we do this? Can we not do this? Or,
yes.
How do we go about doing this so that it pleases everybody in the room as opposed to like just the fans of like the source material or whatever? Which I mean, I get, I understand,
The other big one, I don't know if you guys read about it, was the fact that they, in Black Panther, they made Ironheart instead of Iron Lad as the heir apparent to Tony.
Yeah, but Iron Lad ties in with Kang the Conqueror.
Yeah.
Because he is a form of Kang. But Ironheart, I think it's more just to tack on someone to like the, the Armor Wars or whatever?
Yeah, the Armor Wars, yeah. For me, her comic failed miserably. They tried hers like 2 or 3 times, and it failed each time.
Once you write something scripted and film it, it's kind of locked in, so...
Yeah. Like with me, for Black Panther, I really thought M'Baku would have been the next heir instead of Shuri. And not only did they add Shuri in, they added Ironheart in as well.
At least for that, like, Shuri in the comics does take up that mantle as like a Black Panther. My thing was, I feel like Ironheart was just, other than like leading up to like the Armor Wars, because they really didn't even like point to, to that whole role. Like they didn't involve Don Cheadle too much or whatever. But yeah, I think it was just more of a marketing thing. They were like, how can we squeeze some more like money out of this? They're like, okay, well, let's use this character and, kind of just throw her out there. Like, I think the movie would have did fine without her, to be honest. Because, I mean, nonetheless, the movie did fine. If anything, so far, it's probably like that. And I think my 3 so far have been like Multiverse of Madness, Shang-Chi, and then Black Panther, too. But as far as like leaving like at least a good impression,
yeah,
like within the storyline, not so much like how they've helped out like moving forward. But I mean, they were like the ones that really like I enjoyed.
I think Shang-Chi was probably the best movie from this phase.
Yeah, I mean, wait, Spider-Man, was that from last phase or from this phase?
Oh, dude, I totally forgot about Spider-Man.
Oh, that was...
Hey, yo.
Spider-Man for me was my favorite.
Spider-Man,
okay.
Yeah.
Take it back.
That's pure
yeah, take it back. Hey, edit it. Spider-Man #1.
Yeah, so Spider-Man #1, Shang-Chi #2, and Multiverse #3. But also, those, I think, are going to be more prominent roles in later movies, not just this phase. These will carry on to the next phase, I think.
Yeah.
Well, they all definitely did a good job of like establishing that. Like Spider-Man did a good job of establishing its ending. And it's like now we're going to get the Peter Parker that I think we were used to as far as like I was telling Javi from like the animated series, like college Peter, Which even then,
all the time.
At least with Shang-Chi, it was a good movie. I think they left it like in a good place. It's a good way to introduce Iron Fist because Shang-Chi is Iron Fist's teacher.
Oh, shit.
So in a little history lesson, in the Marvel comic universe, Shang-Chi's actually called the master of Kung Fu. They were like, Marvel was really banking on like the whole 1960s like Kung Fu era with like Bruce Lee and stuff.
Yeah.
And so Shang-Chi was introduced as the master of Kung Fu. That's a good way to introduce Iron Fist. Black Panther did a good job. I think it like gave a pretty good ending to where it could continue at some point. I'm curious to see what they do with like Doctor Strange moving forward. I think if they introduce Mephisto, that's like the one that I'm looking forward to now ever since they brought it up, you know?
Yeah, because if you introduce Mephisto, you can also introduce Ghost Rider.
Oh, that's why. The big one.
Nightcrawler has a big deal to do with Mephisto because his father's from that realm.
Like the landscape is open. They can do like practically whatever they want. It's just a matter of like who they introduce moving forward, like for either brand.
I think with DC, if they start introducing more members of the Justice League, not the Justice Society, because they can get into, if they really wanted to, Constantine, sorcerers like, what's his name?
Zatara.
Zatara and his daughter is Zatanna.
Yeah, Zatanna plays a big role, well, depending on which version you have. She's either part of Young Justice or she is Constantine's on and off again lover.
Yeah, you can do the Hellblazer.
Yeah.
Which would be fucking crazy. Well, Keanu Reeves, he's coming back as Constantine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I saw that. That's crazy.
But I
think they said that the one that they're looking for Zatanna is the girl that played Alexandra Daddario. I don't know if you guys know who that is.
I know the name.
No.
I know the name.
She, Percy Jackson, the girl in that movie.
Oh, yeah, I definitely didn't see that movie.
Yeah. 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 They're in talks that she would be a really good Zatanna.
If she dyed her hair black.
I think if they go that route, like for me, that's a big one. If they do introduce, if they reintroduce Constantine, if they go like the Hellblazer route, because they can do like Etrigan.
Oh yeah, Etrigan.
I don't know if you guys are hella up on Sandman. I'm fucking super up on Sandman because they could introduce Sandman. Like even in like the smallest way, they could introduce Sandman because he's like him and Constantine are kind of boys.
Yeah. And Lucifer, you can actually introduce Hell.
Yeah.
Lucifer plays a big part in that too.
Yeah.
Depending on which version you like, you can get the version that the Fox show did, or the version that
the Sandman did.
Sandman did.
Honestly, I like the Sandman version just because it really falls in line with like the comics because Lucifer is just a perfect being, you know?
Yeah.
Which I think like that's cool. That works for me. But I think introducing Hellblazer would be cool because it would almost fit perfectly in line with the way that Marvel's trying to go, like introducing like Man-Thing and like the
you could do an actual Justice League Dark. I think that's
exactly
something that they should do.
Well,
I'd be more interested in watching a Justice League Dark than watching the current version of Thunderbolts in Marvel.
Guillermo del Toro was tied to Justice League Dark.
Yeah, I forget who he was gonna direct it, right?
Yeah, he was tied to it to like introduce it, but I think it just kind of got shot down because of I think it was during the time of like reintroducing like the Zack Snyder Justice League and stuff. I think it just kind of like got swept away.
Yeah. I think one of the things holding them back, DC, one of the ones was first that with the whole Ezra Miller thing and that they had spent so much money, they couldn't get away from him. And then their merger, the Warner Brothers merger with Discovery.
Yeah.
They shelved the Batgirl movie. The movie was done. It was already it already did testing. It was projected to be out next year. And Discovery said, no, we'd rather have that movie be a tax write-off and shelve it.
Honestly, I think where they go with that to like add to that, because now that merger is done, it's also being included with HBO Max. So that's going to become like one whole little package. I almost bet that they'll bring that out as like an exclusive movie. You know what I mean?
I can see that, yeah. Because if I remember correctly, the Batgirl was supposed to be the Batman universe. From the Batman, the Pattinson movie, it was supposed to be like that. It was supposed to be
like
that
gritty
versions of Batgirl, yeah.
What did you guys think of Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman?
I actually liked it.
I mean, I'm not going to say take it out. Let's just keep her in the movies.
I was there for like the choices that they made, which I didn't mind. I like that Penguin, like crime boss, heavy on like crime boss, you know? I wasn't mad at Riddler. I like that angle that they took with him as like the serial killer, you know? As like a Zodiac, I guess you could say. But I was there for Pattinson. Yeah, I don't know. I was curious to see what you guys thought about her. I honestly was a fan of Anne Hathaway.
Yeah. I like that one too. I mean, it's hard to judge those characters.
That's why it's hard to judge them because they're kind of secondary to the. Well, I feel like Anne Hathaway had more involvement in like that Christopher Nolan, like that Batman. I feel like this Catwoman she was like there, and then it's like Batman, 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 and then she kind of comes up again. I feel like she didn't like make an impact. Or think of like the Tim Burton Batman with that Catwoman.
Like he was just running into her. She wasn't really playing a role.
But that's kind of what Catwoman is at the beginning. I think what they did with this is they set it up so that, yes, there's obviously attraction there between them, but she could end up becoming a villain later. Yeah. Just because they have differing allegiances and interests. The way that they used her, especially when she kicked that guy off the high rise, was perfect Catwoman right there. Like, look, I know I'm supposed to help you, but dude killed my best friend. I have to do what I have to do.
It's survival. She's looking out for her. I'm curious to see how they develop that new Joker. I like the actor, and I've looked up highlights of like his other roles that he's had. Because Joaquin Phoenix Joker, I honestly would prefer more.
Dude, that to me was the epitome of Joker.
But how
you saw the villain story progress?
How would it fit in with this current Pattinson Batman?
I think it would. I mean, it's the same cinematography. You know, every scene is kind of dark and gloomy, and that's how it was in the Batman, Robert Pattinson too. It was all dark and gloomy. It was the nighttime Batman. You know what I mean? I just rewatched that Joker, and end of that movie, or towards the end of that movie, he incites a riot.
That's pure Joker right there.
But I'm thinking that could tie in because that's whenever the city started to get scared. That's whenever everybody started to have fear and not trust their neighbor. Those two movies can link up like that.
I guess to me, from the way that I saw it, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, it really was like he really took us on that trip building into like who the Joker was, you know, by the end of the movie. Like I think the story itself, like building into like that villain, or well, I mean, is he a villain?
Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Like building into that person, like it was a ride, it was a story. And then look at the steps that they took for that post-credit in Robert Pattinson's Batman with, and I'm sure I'm saying his fucking last name wrong, but Barry Keoghan. You know, when they introduced his Joker, it was, and you know, he was doing the questioning of him. Right away, he took the turn of like kind of like that classic Joker archetype where he's like, oh, you know, it's gonna be, you know, like he's crazy, but he's like, he's not like he's serious. That's why I think it's, in my opinion, it was two different Jokers that we were seeing, you know, and that's why I'm like, with the way they laid it out, would Joaquin Phoenix's Joker fit into that Batman universe? Like, would he work with what they were trying to go for with the other Joker that we saw?
I think it could, but the problem is, in my opinion, Joaquin Phoenix is too old for this Batman version.
Hey, how dare you?
Well, I mean, if we're being honest.
No, yeah, he is.
Barry Keoghan, I think he said it. He's about the same age or maybe younger than Pattinson, and they could play adversaries for 5-6 years.
Because then to split off of that with the post-credit for the Snyder Cut, and we do, again, fucking Jared Leto's Joker. I think, like, out of the three, like, to grow into a villain, like you're saying, or to grow into, like, a storied history, like, between the two characters, I think the personality of Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, but, like, tacked on to Barry Keoghan's, you know, like, person, his character.
Yeah.
That, and I don't like the character design. I don't like how fucked up they made him look. You know what I mean?
Yeah, his face is sort of too... I think it was too... That right there to me was them trying to go a little too gritty.
That's what I was like, I think they did, like, they wanted to do... They got too ambitious, you know?
Yeah.
They were like, well, you know, here's our Joker. And it's like, nah, you know, just tone it down.
DC's in disarray right now. I guess is the only word you can put it. And we're all as fans, we're just hoping that they pick a direction and just go with it.
I think the way that they made the Joker with Joaquin Phoenix. They should take that same approach with this. What's his name?
Barry Keoghan?
Yeah, they should take that approach with him, building that same storyline where they made him or showed him before he was crazy, before he was a bad person. But they built it to where it wasn't like a corny crazy. It was a justified crazy where you understood, where you were like, damn, I see why this guy is doing what he's doing. I don't blame him. I would do the same thing. Like, it wasn't like a corny crazy to say like, oh yeah, my mom died and my dad hit me and now I'm crazy. I want to go crazy.
No,
you want a natural development to it.
We saw a person who was like already in pain and needed help, and we saw that pain and stuff like just overwhelm him like over the course of that movie, and it built into like, okay, I'm calling out for help and I need help and I'm not getting help. I'm being overlooked. And we saw it drive him over the edge, and he was like, well, now like let's fucking hurt everybody. I'm hurt, like I'm gonna fucking hurt everybody else now. I think that would be, a cool way to develop that character, especially like if you're trying to, like we were saying, to set up a new universe in which we have these characters,
Yeah.
How do you think Harley Quinn will do, like the Lady Gaga?
Harley Quinn, that's a hard character to portray just because it's already overdone.
I think Margot Robbie is probably like the best that we're gonna get. I think Lady Gaga's gonna make that character look dumb.
Yeah,
you're gonna make it too much.
I think she's gonna overdo it.
Yeah,
and that's why I feel like it's already overdone, and she's gonna overdo it even more.
Well, because we have 3 versions now, dude.
Yeah,
currently 3 versions
of
Harley in media
of Harley Quinn.
Yep, we have Margaret Robbie. You have the new Lady Gaga one. And the animated show with Kaylee Cuoco.
See, but Kaylee Cuoco's her Harley Quinn is a good comic adaptation.
Yeah,
I think she's done a solid job of adapting that character for that kind of a setting, like in an animated setting.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Look at Margot Robbie, like really overdid it with the first Suicide Squad, and then I feel like she redeemed herself in the second one with James Gunn's Suicide Squad.
Yes,
I think she dialed in like a good base for that Harley Quinn in that movie. Like, I think it's a character that can be easily like ruined, as opposed to like easily done.
It's either a masterpiece or a crapshoot, and there's no in between.
I mean, it's like, let's be honest, it's like Batman himself.
Yeah,
we've had 4 good Batman and a lot of bad ones. I didn't like Val Kilmer's version. I didn't like George Clooney's version.
Hey, how dare you?
No disrespect, Clooney.
Hey, maybe not Clooney himself. I just didn't like the writing and in the suit. I didn't like the suit. Not gonna lie.
Real quick, what are you guys watching, reading, playing? The usual questions.
Playing Warzone, Rocket League. Got a Nintendo Switch for my birthday,
Let's
go. Playing a lot of Rocket League, and Javi let me borrow a Pokemon game. Playing a lot of those games right now, and then I'm reading. I'm not reading.
All right.
Let's be honest.
Hey, okay.
But I listen to Pat McAfee's show every day because it's football season, and a little bit of Flagrant 2 with Andrew Schultz.
Hey, okay. Some variety.
Yeah, me, I'm playing a lot of 2K right now because I'm just in that mood. Again, those 2K moods. I'm watching Jack Reacher actually right now, which is not bad, and I'm rereading Solo Leveling. It's the manhwa from Korea.
Yeah, that's cool. To tie it off, I am also on the Switch right now playing Mario Kart 8 and Smash Bros.
Let's link up.
I'm following No Jumper real hard right now. I'm not watching, but I'm reading Berserk, and
okay,
I'm fucking going crazy because Berserk is nuts.
If that castle still gleams just as brightly in your eyes, then it is your obligation to lay the stones that surround you now. Let us begin the chant of offering.
All right, my dudes, I appreciate you guys jumping on. I'll let you guys get to your dinner.
Hey, look, we'll do it soon because this is cool.
Get at it. Get at it, my boys. You know where I'm at.
Let's go.
All right, yeah. Thanks for having me on, man.
Hey, of course.
Throw the shotgun from the boy. You can't see it, but I'm doing it.
Hey, shoo.
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service.
And that concludes our call-in episode with the boy and our DC expert, enthusiast, fan, cousin Javi. I am the Elder. I hope you guys enjoy the show. As always, keep supporting. Thank you so much. On a special closing note, I will say internationally, we have a very good following in Germany, much like David Hasselhoff. So to our German listeners, for all of you out there, very special closing message.
Für unsere deutschen Zuhörer wird Ihre Unterstützung sehr geschätzt. Danke fürs Zuhören.
Translated, thanks for tuning in. Without knowing that we have a listener presence, this show would be all for nothing. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are available. Thank you so much, kids. Happy holidays, and we'll talk to you soon.